Hello and welcome everybody to another Thursday night edition of Aquaholics Anonymous. Of course, I've got my buddy, my pal, my co-host, and my best friend Chattanooga Ed here with me, hanging out tonight. And we are going to be talking about things that we look for when we're shopping for new fish, and also some questions you may ask as well. I know we've covered this briefly in the past before, but it's been a while, and we've got some new people to the channel, so I figured we'd touch on it again. And then, of course, we'll be taking your questions and comments from the chat. When it comes to that time, if you'll put the @ symbol in front of Fish Room Fever, that will highlight for me. For anybody that doesn't know, that makes it stand out bright orange and shows up on my screen so I don't miss your question. Before we get into that, though, while we've still got some people rolling in and we're getting the show started, I want to say a huge thank you to a couple people. One of them I see here in the chat, and I'm sure the other one will probably be passing through. But Rico, I'm not wearing your shirt tonight because I had not worn Fantastic Freaks, and I almost forgot I hadn't worn it. So thank you to Fantastic Freaks for sending me the shirt. I do appreciate that, buddy. I know you'll be rolling through here if you're not already lurking. And then Rico in the chat there is talking about the shirt I'll be wearing next week from my buddy Rico stand there. This one monitor thing is still kicking my butt. I'm still getting used to it. Rico, I appreciate that. I really, really do. I love this shirt. Love them both. But I will be wearing that next week. I didn't want to slide our buddy Austin because I remembered I had not worn his shirt yet. I'm going to say thank you. Ooh, go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, I wonder if you had that much hair, if it hurts the top of your head, pulling it all down.
I guess maybe that might depend on how thick your hair is.
I don't know. I wish I had that much hair.
It's been a long time since I had long hair. It's been probably 2 decades when I was much, much younger.
The longest my hair's ever got to is my eyebrows. I don't think I've ever had it like touch my shoulder at all. Not even a rat tail when I was in high school.
But I do want to say thank you for a couple super chats and answer a question that we've got here in one of them as people are still rolling in. And then we will jump into the topic for tonight. But Carol Cox with $10 super chat. Also, thank you for being a member as well, Carol. Says, James, a few months ago, you showed a pump and hose you used to do water changes. What pump and hose is that? I want to copy your setup if I can. Thank you. Thank you for the super chat and the continued support as always, Carol. Never required that you phrase the question in a super chat form, but it's always very much appreciated. The setup that I use, and I'll also let Ed go over his is slightly different than mine. But the setup that I use is just a Python water changing system. Now you can do it with the Aqueon hose, but know that at least in my experience, the parts are not interchangeable. Case in point, the Python hook, the threading is different for the Aqueon system, at least the ones I have. So the Python hook doesn't want to thread on to the pieces for the Aqueon hose system. But I think I saw that you actually have a Python. But basically, it's just a very cheap Amazon is where I got mine. Just a small pump. The big thing that you're looking for is that it's going to have either the proper diameter to fit in your hose, or what I look for is just the pumps that are the power, not really power heads, but the little water pumps that have multiple nozzles with them. So usually you can find one that's got maybe 3 different sizes, and you can just stick your hose right on that. And that works great for pumping out tanks that are too low to get a gravity siphon going, or notice you mentioned some dental surgery being done or something along those lines. So not wanting to start a siphon, it works really well for that. Really, the other thing you're looking for is the volume of water you're wanting to move. The lower volume of water, the less likely it is to suck up small things. Just depends on what you've got in your tank. But of course, it's going to take longer. So anywhere from maybe 300 to 500 gallons per hour on the flow. I'm not real picky about what brand it is. I've bought several different generic ones off of Amazon, and they've all worked really well for that purpose. So that's going on one end of that Python, and that's dropping in the tank. Then the other part of my setup that I use is, of course, the Python brand hook that attaches to the hose system. You can hang on the tank. And then I use 1-inch PVC on that for filling in for draining. Just depends on which way I'm going. And I talked about that a little bit in the I took down my tanks video, I think is the name of it. It's a nice little setup using that 1-inch PVC on the hook, because you can make sure that you're not kicking up, for example, your sand or your substrate, especially if you've got a dirted tank. But also I've got a bunch of different sizes of PVC because I've got so many different tanks. that I can just kind of set it and forget it, if you will. If I'm using that on something that is a gravity drain, and this kind of goes a little outside your question, but is more general help, I guess, for anybody else. You can hang it on there for draining purposes and just have the length of PVC that you want those tanks to drain to. So if you've got 30 10-gallon tanks and you want, X amount of water to come out of all of them, you cut one piece of PVC and it's going to drain to that height in all the tanks. And so that's kind of my full setup, if you will. Again, I showed the PVC part of it in that I took down my tanks video from, several months ago. And then the pump, just a generic pump. I usually look for multiple nozzles to come with it. And then you can cover it. Well, I'll let Ed talk about what he uses, Ed's setup, and how you can kind of filter out not sucking up little baby fish if you got smaller things.
Yep. Well, I used to use, I bought one of those great big, I think they're 42-gallon, maybe they're 37-gallon trash cans on wheels. And I still use that for draining, but I used to fill it up with water. And then I got this at Lowe's. It's you can see
Yep.
Focusing. It's not focusing.
It focused just fine before. Oh,
it did.
There we go.
This little pump, you can, you buy it at Lowe's, you take it straight to their plumbing area, and they'll find a hose that fits it perfect. And you can get like 6 foot, 8 foot, 10 foot, whatever you want, whatever you think is going to be necessary. And it's going to all work great. I used to put that in the big trash can because I would put the water in there and let it get to room temperature. And I'd let it sit there for a few days. So I wasn't adding chemicals to get rid of chlorine and stuff like that. But that took so much space. A giant trash can filled with water that I can have a whole nother rack where that was. So now what I do is I've bought a 100-foot Python and I fill my tanks like a normal, well, I shouldn't say a normal, but like how people do nowadays, and drop a couple drops of prime in each tank and then fill it up and go all the way around. And then I do 2 shots of Easy Green in each tank, after they're all topped off, then I'm all, so that way I've got that, because you don't want to put the fertilizer in before you're taking it out. Right. Now, I used to, of course, and then I used to put that in the tank also. And I put pantyhose around it, so that way it wouldn't suck any little fry out. But now what I bought with the whole system with the Python, I bought one of those ones that has like a little squeeze pop ball thing. And I got it at PetSmart. I'm sure I got it at PetSmart. It's got about a 10-foot hose on one side and then about a 4-foot, maybe it's 8 foot on one side and 4 foot on the other. And then I can just get it right on the mulm, that I want to pull out. If I know there's a ton of fry in there, I take a shrimp net and I put that on the end. So that way no fish or shrimps or anything are going to get sucked through that fine net. And I'll drain the tanks that way. I hope that helps. But it's the 300-gallon per hour pump at Lowe's. It works great.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that'll definitely get the job done. So Carol Cox, a huge thank you for the super chat. Appreciate that very, very much. I'm trying to get the party popper away from the mic here for those that are on headsets. Well, that's a new brand. That one's a little bit louder.
That was.
But thank you for that. Very much appreciate it, Carol. And we had our buddy Rico Stan before the stream started as well. Said, if you have any tech issues, and it jumped on me. Grab that real quick. And then we're going to get to rolling. We're going to talk about our topic, and then we'll dive into some more super chats that have come through. And I do want to say thank you to everybody. But Rico Stan with the $5 super chat says, if you guys have tech issues tonight, I know what it is. And he is referencing his shirt. There's a running joke with that about wearing his shirt causes technical difficulties. Again, Rico Stan, thank you so much for that, my friend. And I will be wearing it next Thursday for the stream. I'll actually be wearing it before that because I've got a thing to go to. But in terms of being live with it, I'm just going to throw the test strips around there. I will be wearing it for next week's show. So thank you, buddy. And thank you for the super chat. Again, not necessary, but very much appreciated. Kind of scared to do this with the mic now. Let's do that. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate you. I know we've got a couple more super chats, and I will get to those, I promise. And I do thank you all. But let's talk a little bit tonight now that the show's rolling. We've got some people funneling in about what we look for when we're going to shop for new fish. You know, new fish is arguably one of the best experiences in the hobby, whether it's buying new fish or, you know, in some cases, I know a lot of us breed our own fish. It's always wonderful to have new fish. So maybe if you've stumbled in here and you're newer to the hobby, maybe you don't know what to look for, or maybe, you know, you're still kind of getting acclimated to the whole fish keeping hobby. So just a couple things, and we can talk about what we look for in person, and then, you know, we could briefly touch on maybe what we look for online and an online distributor as well. It's going to be a little bit different. But some of the things that I look for when I'm going into a fish store to buy fish, one, I'm kind of looking at the source, so to speak, looking at the local fish store. You know, you can't typically know the wholesaler and, you know, that background as to where the fish are coming from. But just like with any business, you can kind of walk in and get an idea of the experience that you're about to have in that location. You know, it applies to fish stores the same as it does retail stores. If you walk in and, you know, maybe it's a messy store, it's a dirty store, they're not cleaning their bathrooms, you can kind of translate that over, especially in a fish store. You go, well, you know, maybe they're not taking the time to do that. What else are they not taking the time to do? So first of all, I'm looking at the store, looking at not necessarily how they're set up, but how are they maintaining the store? What's the overall appearance? What's the quality? Just so I kind of know. And I guess I should also add in here, keep in mind that there's a big difference in some place it's just been let go, and then it's not being maintained. In some place it's renovating. There's a huge difference in you walk in and they're you know, doing construction. I know your local fish store at Aquatic Aesthetics near Chattanooga, and my local fish store, Aquatic Marine, here in Knoxville, both in Tennessee. They're constantly doing awesome new things, and so there's a lot of renovations going on. And that's not what I'm talking about in terms of quote unquote cleanliness. I'm talking about, yeah, most of us have probably walked into a local fish store and we go, man, this place is just kind of seen better days. You know, this was probably in its prime 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And not that there aren't some awesome stores that have been around for a long time, but a lot of times they just kind of go by the wayside, if you will. So that's the first thing I'm looking at, is just kind of checking out the store in terms of how are they taking care of everything? Because that's typically going to translate it into what kind of care are they taking of their fish. What about you, Ed? Is that something that you take into consideration when you walk in?
Oh, it's huge. James and I, we go to I was given the thumbs up to XDo, but James and I go to a lot of fish stores, and you can tell. I mean, there was one last year or earlier this year we went to. Yep. They had fish tanks in front of fish tanks because the fish tanks were broken, or they just didn't want to clean them. I don't know why. You know what one I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And that was just really strange. You know, things like that. And then when I don't want to get too far into other things, but yes, I totally agree. But you also, they can still trick you and have a really nice store and have some some seedy stuff to them too. Absolutely. We've got one here in Chattanooga, in Chattanooga, that's a beautiful store, but they like to do some kind of underhanded stuff too. So I'm not going to say the name of it, but it's not Aquatic Aesthetics or Fish Mania.
There you go. Yeah, we never like to badmouth people. We'd rather just not talk about you than say something bad about you. But that's definitely true. You can get into some really nice setups where they are putting all the effort into just the retail aspect, looking nice, but not taking care of the fish. So yeah, that's kind of one thing, is just get a general feel for the store that you're going into. And I don't mean you have to do a 30-minute walk around inspection. Usually when you walk into any place, you can kind of tell. You know, if it's a gas station, you walk in and go, oh, I don't want to use the bathrooms here.
For sure.
That kind of feeling. Of course, then you're looking at tanks along with that / after that. You know, what do the tank systems look like? You know, are they maintaining the tank systems well? Do you see a bunch of dead fish? You know, does it have an odor to the the store. Things of that nature. And I will say, I'd like to point out, I have seen people that kind of go, "Oh, that store had a dead fish in it." Every store is going to have some die off. That's just part of the experience. Most stores are pretty good typically about catching that. Most stores, do a quote unquote walk of death in the morning to pull any dead fish out. And they're constantly looking at that throughout the day as they're doing maintenance. So that's kind of also a telltale on whether or not they're really doing maintenance or looking at their tanks, as if they've got a lot of dead fish. Also, you may find, one tank that maybe they just got an order in, and the wholesaler sent them some crappy fish. So that one particular, maybe their Cardinal Tetris came in, and most of those things died off. I don't hold that against the store if they, get something in that's not doing well. So,
yeah, sometimes it's really hard because they're transporting them. We don't know how rough they were treated.
Yeah.
How maybe they came from, let's say, Peru. They came up from Peru, and they'd only been here for 20 hours, and they bagged them and then sent them to Knoxville or Chattanooga.
Yep.
So those fish, they might just have already been through it, and that's where our poor fish owners, our fish store owners, just don't have much of a prayer, or not a prayer, but a chance.
Yeah.
Now, it's nice, if they have the opportunity to be able to quarantine. I remember one time we had a big discussion about quarantining tanks in fish stores.
Absolutely.
And we know that Corey, he quarantines his fish.
Yeah.
But not every fish store can afford to quarantine every fish they get. It's just most fish stores don't have as much back space as they do front, showcase space.
Right. And we've got a couple of local fish store owners that, tune in regularly and watch the show. So they'll chime in, I'm sure. And they're free to do so. They're welcome to do so. But my thought on that is just, if you run the numbers on it, most mom and pop local fish stores, which are my favorite, and I think yours as well, Ed, most mom and pop local fish stores would not be able to meet their budget trying to maintain the level that
I'm sorry, I laughed.
You mentioned.
I wasn't trying to laugh at that.
Oh, you're fine, buddy.
BJ just mentioned how our beards match our outfits.
Oh, nice. Thank you,
okay.
BJ.
But, yes.
But yeah, most places that would put them out of business trying to do that. I think that's an amazing standard to set, if you will. But I don't think that most places can do that. Having basically a whole second store, if you will, just for a month of quarantine or 2 weeks of quarantine is not feasible in most cases. And so I just wanted to, I guess, throw that in there.
But now, I've been in Rob's back of his warehouse area, and he does have about 15 tanks or maybe 12 tanks set up. So when he does, he inspects his fish real good. And if he sees any signs, he doesn't want them to get into his general public, and kill his fish. Also that he does have, plus he doesn't want to sell them. Right. So I bet most fish stores probably have a behind the scenes. It's just not able to quarantine 100%.
Yeah, well, and also I have seen fish stores, when they get an order coming in that they're checking off with whoever's shown up to sell it to them, they'll go through there and they'll be like, "No, we're not going to take this bag of fish. These don't look good. These look sick. We don't want that in our store." Mm-hmm. I guess. Go ahead, buddy. Go ahead.
We had a great store here called the Great Barrier Reef in Cleveland for a while, and they just decided that it was just too much work, and they went on with the rest of their life. And we still see them. They're part of the Tennessee Fish Mafia. But they wouldn't sell Bob. Bob, they were mostly saltwater. And Bob would want some fish that just came in, and they wouldn't sell it to him right away. They'd say, "Nope, we want to give it a couple of days at least of us watching it before we let you have it, Bob." So, that was really cool that they did that type of thing.
Absolutely. That's the next thing I'm going to touch on. But before I jump into that, I do want to say, keep in mind when you're looking at, if a store is not quarantining their fish, even stores that do quarantine their fish, pretty much everybody that's reliable in the hobby will still recommend, when you buy fish from them, that you quarantine anyways. So regardless, you're still being recommended to do your own quarantine, whether they've quarantined it or not. And that goes for a lot of not just brick and mortar stores, but also a lot of online retailers. A lot of reliable ones will tell you, hey, yeah, I've run these guys through a process. They've been quarantined, they've been observed or medicated, sometimes both. But you still need to quarantine when you get them. So it's not really changing anything on the hobbyist side of it. It's still recommended that you quarantine your fish. And without going down the quarantine rabbit hole, doesn't necessarily mean you have to medicate, but at least put them separately and observe them. So, but that being said, talking about what you mentioned with, the fish store not wanting to sell fish right away. One thing that you can do, if you've got a good local fish store that you frequent regularly, this doesn't maybe work so well if it's like, when we visit stores out of state. But if it's your local fish store, a lot of times I will ask, or at least before I kind of knew the schedule, when did these come in? How are they doing? And then if they just came in that day, give it a couple days and come back and get them. See if there's, I have had instances where the fish were sold before I came back. That can happen, of course. But I generally don't buy fish the day that they get shipped in. Just like you mentioned, that store typically doesn't sell fish. I know a lot of places that will like, hey, just give it. These came in a little rough. Give them a couple days. We want to make sure that they're in good health before we sell them to you.
And yeah. I think yours, Aquatic Marine will put a tape on their tanks saying these are being quarantined.
Yeah,
or not for sale. And I know Rob does that too, and it's a whole strip. And I think they both put it across the front, so it's like you can look at them, but you can't buy them.
Yeah, there's both of our local fish stores have ways of trying to make sure that they get you the healthiest fish they possibly can. Because the last thing they want to do is sell somebody a fish that, they don't think has a chance at making it, or they haven't had long enough to even know how the fish is going to do.
And so, Swiss Aquatics, Priscilla, she said, don't judge the appearance only on your first walk-in because every store has a bad day. They do. Priscilla might be the only person working that day and she might have a migraine, but she's the manager, so she has to show up. And, maybe she's like, if it's a migraine like me, I'm like partially blind in one eye. It's not fun.
Absolutely.
And you might have a rough day and you think, oh, it's a Tuesday. Not too many people buy fish on Tuesday. And then two schmucks like James and I walk in with cameras.
Well, I may have more behind the scenes experience at it, but I think we can all kind of tell when it's a bad day versus when it's been a bad 5 years.
Well, in that one store we were talking about, I think it's been a bad 15 years.
Yeah. I did retail management for many, many years and was a store manager and a regional trainer and all that. And you can definitely tell the difference in walking into a location. This applies to fish stores as well. Walking into a location and going, oh, it's a bad day, or, it's been a bad week. They must have had somebody out sick and this place has just been let go for a year, 5 years, 15 years. But no, that's absolutely true. People have bad days. But I think that typically doesn't show nearly as much as when some place has just been let go. And they're maybe just not taking care of things because it's just not there for them anymore. Moving on into the fish, some of the things that I look for, the first thing, of course, is going to be sickness. And this kind of plays into the other things we talked about. But the first thing I'm looking for is, does it have, of course, like ick, any white spots? Does it have any fungus looking areas? Any visible diseases? And you can't catch everything, but there are a lot of things you can catch. Ick is pretty easy to look in a tank and go, oh, well, this tank is full of ick. I probably don't want to buy these fish today. Any other things disease-wise that you can think of off the top of your head, Ed, that we've maybe run into or that you look for?
Velvet. Sometimes you'll see corridoras with kind of cutting right under their little barbels or under their front fins. That's something you see, or I've seen a lot, and then sometimes like a hookworm, like the little parasites. It's kind of, you can see those every so often. Now, if I see that stuff in a fish store, I let the fish store know right away because sometimes they don't see it, but
absolutely.
But I won't buy a fish from a tank that has those problems. In as much as I want that fish, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, well, and I've seen him in that situation where it's like, man, I really wish those fish weren't sick. I want that. especially, being out of town maybe and going to a fish store. But the next thing and they may not always give this information, and maybe the employee doesn't know, but the thing you could ask if you do see a tank of sick fish, ask them if they're on a separate system. So maybe you've got some fish, 3 tanks over that have ick, and you've got some fish over here that you want. It never hurts to say, hey, are these on a different water system? Or are they sharing a water source with the sick tank? A lot of places, even when they've got lots and lots of tanks, they have a way to at least shut off segments of tanks, and they'll say, okay, this whole rack, we're going to isolate the water on it so that it's not in line with the other tanks anymore. Or maybe they're just set up independently already. So that's something to keep in mind. If you do see, some quarantine fish, you definitely want to make sure that the other fish you're getting aren't in the same system, because there's not really a big difference in being the next tank over in the same water versus the same tank in that water with the sick fish. Getting into a couple other things, and then we'll jump into the chat. I know we're getting a little bit behind on there, but this was something I felt was important that I wanted to talk about, especially because we've got new people coming into the hobby every day, new people coming to the channel every day. That's awesome. I love it, and I appreciate it. But I'm looking at the bellies, and I know you do the same thing, Ed. How are the fish looking? Are they looking really emaciated? Are they looking really, really skinny and maybe lethargic? Maybe they're not eating or not wanting to eat. A lot of times that's a sign of, going back to diseases, parasites, keeping in mind that fish, when they do come in at first, maybe that fish hasn't eaten in 4 days, 5 days a week, because it's been in transit that whole time. Boom, one place to the next, to the next, to the next. Which goes back to why it's good to give a couple of days to let fish settle in after they get to your local fish store before you purchase them. But I definitely like to look at the bellies. I like to see if you've got a nice, healthy looking fish, or if you've got one that maybe could potentially have parasites, or it could just be that, maybe it's just come in and it hasn't eaten in a week. Usually that doesn't show too terribly bad, but that can vary a lot depending upon the fish and the size of the fish. A little bitty 2-inch tetra is going to show more, at least in my experience, if it hasn't eaten in a week versus maybe a 10-inch Oscar. Some fish can go a month without eating, no problem. Your little fish tend to metabolize quicker and tend to need food more often, so it kind of shows on them when they've gone longer. Ed, I know that's something you look for as well.
Well, especially with like autocinclus. I've mentioned this many times because I love them, and if you see their little belly concaved, don't buy them because they're going to die. They don't recover most of the time. They're going to die no matter how much algae you have at home. If their stomach is concaved, it's already over pretty much. So you want a nice little fat round, like make it look like it's a pea that's coming outwards, and then you're healthy. You got a healthy auto. But like also with ghost shrimp or amino shrimp or
Amano shrimp.
Amano, you can see those horsehair worms in them too. So like if it's a clear fish, use that to your advantage and look through them and see if there's a big piece of spaghetti in them, because it's not spaghetti.
Right. Absolutely. The next thing that I'm looking at, and I know this is a lot, but really this is kind of like a really quick, check through in your mind. It's not something you have to sit there and spend a lot of time on each fish. It's something you kind of just look and, the observation, if you will, is done. But I'm looking for, of course, damage to that fish. Has it been beat up? Is it missing, finish and stuff like that? Or that may not necessarily be a problem. It definitely leaves that fish more open to the risk of infections and things along that nature. And it definitely weakens that fish to some extent. I've taken in fish before that, just that a lot of times people might have a fish and they don't care for it at home, and then they just drop it on a local fish store, and that local fish store is like, I don't really want to take it, but we also need to give it a home. So I might get a call and say, hey, I've got this thing and it's missing its whole tail. Do you want to take the time and the money to treat the thing? Whereas it's not really feasible for a local fish store to go through devoting an entire tank and the staff time and the medication to, nurse one fish back to health that some random person dropped on them. But that definitely happens. And I guess that's something else you could keep in mind is, people do drop fish off at local fish stores a lot of times, not always in the best of health. There's a store, and I can't think of the name of it, and it's our buddy's store. He's probably in here. But they had their saltwater set up, and they had one coral tank that was nothing but fish that people had dropped off that were saltwater fish that had hole in the head or head lateral line erosion. And so they're like, hey, we want you to know these are sick fish.
Aquatic arts.
Yeah. Aquatic artisans.
Artisans in Cincinnati.
And she was like, hey, these are sick fish, especially because we were filming. And they, had said, hey, come by and film. But, this tank is specifically, it's corals and it's fish with head lateral line erosion that people have dropped off. We give them a home. That way they don't have to be, put down or whatever. But that's why these fish look a little rough when everything else looks amazing.
And it all started because I said, oh, these fish look a little different than the others. I said, do they start to look that way when they get old? Because I don't know saltwater.
Yeah.
And that's when she explained the whole sad story. Poor things.
But yeah, the next thing that I'm looking at is genetics. And if you're not familiar with the fish, it may not be as easy, but it's just basic stuff. And it's deformities. Does it have, bent spines or, bent fins? What do the genetics look like? Especially, guppies. What do the colors look like? Does it look like this fish has good, strong genetics? Again, it may seem like a lot, but really it's a quick thing. Okay, do the tanks look clean? Is the fish sick? What's its belly look like? Does it have a bent tail and it's got a fin that's all twisted sideways? So a really quick look through when you're actually doing it. And I'm sure, Ed, you look at the same thing, and I know you do because I've seen you talk about, oh well, look at this guy. He's a little bent spine. I don't know that he needs to be in there.
Yeah, totally. So. Otherwise, if it's in my fish tank, it's going to the Bisher.
Right.
Except one time I gave Bob Kaler, I see Bob Steenfont here, Bob Kaler some guppies, and one of the females had a bent spine. I'm like, unbelievable.
Goodness. I guess the last thing I want to tack on there, and then I'll give you a chance if you want to add anything else on. But the last thing is just the general attitude of the fish. All fish have different personality ratings. In the groups, of course, you've got community fish and aggressive fish, but individual fish also have their own personality. So you could have angels are generally mean anyways, but you could have one that's particularly aggressive that maybe is not going to do well in a community tank. So I kind of look for that. Is there a tank bully, if you will? And sometimes you may need that. You may have a tank where you need something that's a little bit more aggressive to go in there. So it's not always avoiding the most aggressive fish, but it's definitely kind of just taking a glimpse at the behavior and going, okay, is everybody getting along, or is this one guy being a jerk and pushing everybody else to the back of the tank or the corner of the tank?
Or does he just not like to hide?
Yeah.
Like my Bisher, I was looking for one just like James. He has one that he's named Buddy. It's always swimming in front. When, most Bischers are all in the back or just chilling. It's always in the middle. And I found one just like James's. And as soon as I saw it, I bought the guy. And it's actually a girl, but she's always out in front. She's awesome. Personality
is definitely a huge thing I look for. Especially, when you have so many tanks, it's nice to have fish that kind of stand out a little bit sometimes. That's pretty much my list. I'm sure some things that a lot of you all look for, and probably some things that I look for as well, just instinctively that I'm not thinking of right now. But I think that's a good place to start, and it's some pretty easy information if you're new to the hobby to kind of digest and take with you. So just walk in, kind of get a feel for the place, see if they've got sick fish, check the bellies, look at deformities, check their attitude. That would, I guess, be the simple rundown on it right there.
Yeah, if you're new into guppies, see if they actually have pairs. Because most people don't, or most shops can't get the females to the males they get. So a pair is so much more valuable than mixed, because then you know what you're going to be getting. So that's another thing. That's why you pay extra for a pair.
Yeah, definitely. In terms of online fish stores, I know we have a lot of people that watch that don't have a local fish store, and they purchase almost exclusively online, if not exclusively online. You can't really do a lot of those things. But I would say the number one thing if you're looking at purchasing fish online is to read reviews. And I know not everybody likes to do that. Ed and I enjoy going through reviews, but that's definitely a huge. Yeah, Ed makes them a lot.
I love reviews. You better not make me mad because I either get 5s or 1s.
Right. But that's something. And again, this kind of goes to the having a bad day thing. I never base it off of, oh, well, there was this one guy that said I had a horrible experience. I want to look at, in mass, if you will, or quite a few reviews if I'm going to order online and go, okay, what are both sides? Are we seeing that people are saying, oh, the shipping was great, and maybe there was one guy that was just like, oh, the shipping was horrible. Or most of the people saying the fish are super healthy, and then one guy is saying, well, these fish didn't arrive alive. And then a lot of times the customer will even leave the other part out. Well, maybe they didn't arrive alive, but did you get replacement fish? And most people don't bother to go back and amend reviews. But I think reviews are very important for online fish stores. And it's great to have like this community here. And I've seen it happen many times. People will pop into a live stream and they'll say, hey, has anybody ordered from this place? And you get, 7 people that go, hey, yeah, it was great. Or you maybe get one person that goes, oh, I had a bad experience, and a couple that don't. Or maybe you get 10 people that go, don't order from, that guy. So this is another awesome source. If you're going to be buying online, you could always ask around and say, hey, has anybody tried out so-and-so? And usually you'll find at least one person or a couple people that have tried it out, or, ordered from that particular person. So I guess that's my rundown. Ed, do you have anything you'd like to add on that before we get into the chat?
No, I missed about everything you said because I was afraid I was going to get whacked in the face with my cat or with my mom's cat's tail.
Love it.
Yep.
All right. Well, I'm going to jump into the chat, grab some highlighted questions and comments, and we will get to the super chats and stickers here in just a moment. Let's see. Edgar Reyes saying hello, and this is as far as I can get back. And this is about 30 minutes ago. We're going to burn through it real quick here. I'm going to go ahead and grab the super chats as I go through. That way they don't run away on me. Carrie Habicorn with $1 super sticker with that big brown pile of fertilizer, keeping the plants growing in the stream. Thank you for that, Carrie. Very much appreciated. See if I can maybe funnel this that direction so it's not picking up on that. These are really loud. It's a different brand because I haven't been able to get the ones that I normally do. But thank you for that, Carrie. Very much appreciated. And always glad to see you here. Thank you for your support. There's Zen dropping links. Thank you for that, Zen. The Fish Tank Barn with the $5 super chat saying, hey, guys, what is going on, Mike? We're going to be doing our Saltwater Saturday show this Saturday. And we do once a month. We talk simple saltwater. Really, really easy to follow if you're somebody that's even remotely interested in doing saltwater, just curious about the topic. We've broken it down to about the simplest form that you possibly can, and we're taking it very, very slowly. That way somebody could come back and watch this as a series in terms of that Saltwater Saturday live stream playlist. We've got Ed, who is brand new to saltwater, myself, who's kind of intermediate level. I've done saltwater and coral and things. And then Mike, Fish Tank Barn, he's our expert. He even does saltwater breeding. So be sure and check that out. Check out his channel, of course. My buddy Chad Doug Ed here. But I encourage you, if you haven't already, hit subscribe and turn those notifications on, and then you'll get notified when we do those shows. And you can come hang out and enjoy the saltwater talk if you'd like to. But thank you, Mike, for that $5 super chat. Always good to see you, Fish Tank Barn. I appreciate you, buddy. I really, really do. I'm looking forward to this week's discussion. Let's roll on down through here. Grab some more highlighted things. Chat's going to jump on me. Let's see how far it goes. All right. It jumped to 10:09, and as far back as I can get, I was at 9:40. Oh, I might be able to get all the way back where I was. Yep, I was. Perfect. Sorry, guys. Jimmy P says, Fish from Fever, I'm late, but I'm told that's fashionable. Absolutely, Jimmy P. Glad to see you. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Thank you for being here, my friend. Xanadu with $5 super chat says, hello, James and Ed. Cheers to y'all. Thanks for the stream. P.S. I have so many of your Snowcross Inler babies. Xanadu, that is awesome. I'm glad to hear it. It's a beautiful fish. I love those. They're actually, I don't remember if the ones that you have are the Fish Tank Barn line or if they are the Tom Patterson line. But they're a beautiful line that's been around through the fish fam, if you will. So I'm glad that you're enjoying those and that they're doing so very, very well for you. thank you for your support as always, not only being a member, but also the super chat. Strings on these don't want to come loose. I'm going to be critiquing this different brand of party poppers the whole time, as you could tell. But Xanadu, my friend, thank you so much.
Where were they made?
I don't know. I tossed the packaging already.
Oh.
Probably China. Made in China.
Nuts.
They've got 0.2 grains of powder or less.
I was hoping it was made in Mexico.
All right. See if we've got any questions here as we roll through. Biscotti Nanya says, Fish Room Fever. Hey, have a good stream. I'm driving home from camping. We found a bunch of cholla wood. That is awesome.
Oh,
always
cool.
awesome when you can find some things out in nature to bring home to the fish tanks. I hope you're driving safe.
Make sure you shake it.
Yeah, make sure you shake it. And
you don't want spiders and ants.
Give it a good boil and all that stuff, especially with it coming from, out in the wild, if you will. Not that it all doesn't come from there. Anyways, what's going on, Jay Oliver's Guppies and Aquatics? Glad to see you here, my friend. Also a member. Thank you for that. Rolling and a scrolling. Fantastic Freaks. What's going on, buddy? I knew you'd be here, my friend. With a $10 super chat. Not necessary, Austin, but thank you so much. Says James and Ed. Awesome looking shirt, James. Is that a Bucky shirt on Ed? Love that place. Got a 20 long tank. Oh, let me start over. Got a 20 long tank opening up soon. Any stock suggestions? Stay fantastic, guys. Absolutely. And again, thanks for the shirt, buddy. Thank you for that super chat.
I thought he was going to say he got a 20 long tank at Bucky's.
Oh, that'd be cool.
That would be
cool. Austin, Fantastic Freaks. Another awesome guy. Suggestions for a 20 long. I think. No, I'm going to stay freshwater. I was going to say I'm actually converting a 20 long over to a small saltwater setup, but we're not going to dive into that. We're not going to touch saltwater right now. Ed, do you want to go first? He said no.
I've got like 42 of them, I think, running, but they're almost all guppies.
Absolutely.
Get some goodies. They're kind of fun.
They are fun. My big
you don't
thing,
have to have a heater.
I like the 20 longs to do a lot of shorter plants. Of course, I love playing in tanks. But I really like the 20 longs for some of the slower growing / shorter growing things. Carpeting plants and things. And then you can get some really cool combinations in there. Shrimp are in pretty much all of my 20 longs, Neocardinas. And then I like to do, even though it's not a nano tank being a 20 long, because it's so short, I kind of like to treat it like a nano tank. So I like schools of maybe the Ember Tetras, some smaller things like that. You can get you a nice, cute little pleco. I'm surprised you're not going to throw some pea puffers in it. Fantastic with all the puffers. Man, that guy's got some awesome puffers.
I don't know. I'd put puffers in a tall.
Yeah, I would too.
I don't know if that makes sense or not, but I don't know that much about them.
Most of the time, most of mine have been set up, like Ed said, for guppies. Our typical, what fish do you recommend, always goes back to what fish do you enjoy? Because if I say, hey, go for some Ember Tetras. If you don't like Ember Tetras, that's a horrible suggestion. Yeah. That being said, I kind of look at it like a nano tank, except with more room, which I know sounds weird. But I look at it from a nano tank aspect because of the height and the depth on it. And then I can not overstock, but I can add additional stock to it. So maybe I look at it, like what would I put in a 10 gallon, and then I can add some extras, some Cory cats, of course, with all of that footprint, all of that floor space. Get you some Corys in there.
Go ahead. How about if I was going to do a 20 long, totally different than every tank I have, I would get some of those. I think they're called tangerine lobsters, but they're little crawfish.
Okay, yeah.
But they're a community crawfish, so you can get a couple of them. You can get maybe 5 of them, and then put danios or something that's going to go crazy on top. Swimming back and forth for some action. I think that'd be cool.
That would be cool. It definitely would be. Yeah, I would say do a school of some smaller tetras. Or a couple different types of smaller tetras. Get you a nice, pretty pleco in there. There are plenty that stay on the smaller side that would do fine in there. And, some Cory cats, little school of Cory cats. Of course, Neocardina shrimp. You've got a planted tank at this point is what I'm picturing. And I think that can give you a really good fill out. And just kind of enjoy it, get you some nice driftwood in there, some nice hardscape, and just make it a really enjoyable tank. Most of my tanks and a lot of Ed's tanks, not that they're not pretty, but they're not aquascaped, if you will. They're set up to breed, a lot of guppies, or hey, this is going to house a whole bunch of guppies. But I think you could do a really, really, really nice scape on a 20-gallon tank with really good stocking and just have a beautiful showpiece to enjoy.
Yeah, I'm going to be doing quite a few scape tanks in the next month or two, just because I'm really getting into the fun side, or not just the guppies, but I want to make them look pretty too.
Absolutely, and that's one thing that I'm looking at doing. Is just going tank by tank, and part of the reason I haven't started is because I do want to videotape it to share with you all. But just go through every tank and just completely reset them, if you will. Not dump and drain and all that stuff, but give them all a fresh scape and a fresh look and make them look prettier, because a lot of mine did just kind of get haphazardly thrown together in the sense of aesthetics, not in the sense of fish safety or not being cycled, if you will, or anything like that. But they may not be the prettiest tanks in the world to look at. So yeah, that's definitely something you can shoot for.
Since I'm up here, yeah,
I'm loving that obelisk. I really am.
I'm going to make it just a little bit darker in here.
So Bryn B says, Fisherman Fever, is it common for gold dust lartail mollies to get ick? I've not had any experience with that specific fish, but I will say I tend to see, in my experience, and Ed, you've had more mollies than I have.
Yeah, and I have that exact same type of molly.
Well, there you go. You want to? I'll just let you take that since you've got that exact same type of molly.
Yeah. Make sure they're warm. I noticed that the ick kind of sneaks up on mollies when they get cold.
Yes.
They like to be, I think, 77 plus. Really, mine do. And if you keep them 77 and keep them fed and keep plenty of, keep clean water, they're going to be fine.
Absolutely. Yep. That's what I was going to go to, was temperature. I think you nailed it right there. Thank you for that, Ed. So maybe not noticeably more likely than other fish, but it just depends on if you're keeping that fish where it would like to be at in that typical range. I hope that answered that question for you, Bryn, and I appreciate you being here. So roll on through. Make sure we're not getting into your time. I can't see the time on this single screen. We got about 11 minutes left. We can get through all these. Lefty3213A, what's going on, my friend? Says, talk about your flashlight trick. I'm assuming it can work with a cell phone light, right? Fisherman Fever. I don't know what trick specifically you're talking about. I do like to carry a pin flashlight, and I have a rechargeable one that plugs into USB. I like that for a lot of reasons. And I do take it to fish stores. But there are a lot of things that maybe will show up when you're looking at a fish. You hit it with a low beam of light that maybe you don't see in the tank lighting or in the ambient lighting. So that is one of my little personal favorites. I typically have a pocket flashlight with me, a little pin flashlight.
He always does. It's awesome. We were at a cafe in the middle of the night, and there was a blackout. And we were the only table with a light. Yeah. Everybody else was using like street lights. They had to like hope the light came through the windows, or they were holding their cell phones. But no, James just pulls out his flashlight and
sits it on the table, and we were able to eat. Yeah.
It was kind of like this.
I do use that sometimes in buying fish, but a lot of times in observing fish. I'll also go through at night because I'm a very nocturnal person. So I'll go through at night when all the lights are off and sometimes sneak a peek and just check on things and see how they're doing. It's amazing the behaviors and colors that you'll see in fish at night via a flashlight versus some of the things that you just are used to observing during the day. Fish sleeping, quote unquote. I've got one angelfish that does barrel rolls when it sleeps. And the first time I saw it, it scared me to death. But it's an every night thing. And that fish has one eye. I got it with one eye. It was a quote unquote rescue, if you will. But that particular fish, every night when it sleeps, it does barrel rolls through the tank while it's asleep, if you will. That's
crazy.
I never, like I said, the first time it scared me half to death. I thought something was wrong. I got in the tank to get it out, and it, kind of came to, if you will, and it was just swimming just normal like it always does. And It's just the things you never know. So it's another behavior you can observe and another time you can observe your fish. But I've used that in fish stores, particularly talking about buying new fish, to be able to get a really good view. Go, I can't tell if that's ick or not. And you kind of hit it with a little extra light and you can go, oh, okay, that wasn't ick. That's just some coloration, or, that's a patterning, or yeah, that's definitely ick. I've also, found fish that even sometimes the fish store may not realize they're in the tank. They're like, I want this fish over here. They're like, we don't have that fish at the time. No, it's in there. I saw it. It's behind that log. I can see its tail sticking out. So there's that. But yeah, very, very good point, Lefty. I can't believe I left that out.
Bob Steamfot got my package today, and I hope he enjoyed it.
I hope so.
That's all I'll say. He's afraid that there's anthrax in it.
Uh-oh.
Just sniff whatever's in there.
Right. I'm going to roll through these real quick because we're about out of time before your show, Ed. Paul Sotero says, Fisher and Fever. James, the fish I find to have the most issues are electric blues / gold rams from big box stores. The genetics are just bad. That definitely can be an issue. And that's part of why I recommend, if you're knowledgeable enough to look at genetics and kind of look at how healthy they are in that aspect, to definitely do it. One thing you could do is you can Google a fish and look at images. Keep in mind, you really don't want to base a fish you're buying off of comparing it to like a professional image, if you will, like an image from a fish magazine or an online widely published thing. Because typically those pictures you're going to see are kind of like the best of the best. They've gone through, and it may be that fish that you're just never going to find. It's that perfect photo of the fish that, everybody, hobbyists that know that fish are going, man, I wish I could find one that looks like that. But look at some hobbyist pictures, look at hobbyist uploaded images on Google and go, okay, this is what this fish is kind of supposed to look like in general. There are going to be variances. And then you can kind of base it off of that and go, wow, 20 pictures I'm looking at online here, this fish has got really bright, colors. And the one that's here in the store, the group that's here in the store, they look really, really dull. Why is that? Or things of that nature. Okay, good information, Paul. As always, thank you for being here. Thank you for being a member. I appreciate you sharing information and support, my friend.
Yeah, I don't trust a lot of if I want to breed fish, I'm not going to go after big box store fish for genetics.
Absolutely. All right, Mike's Aquatics, thanks for the $5 super sticker with that Karate Fox. Yeah. Thank you so much for that, Mike. As always, in here showing the support and very much appreciated. Never expected, but thank you, buddy. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and thank you for being a member as well, my friend. Longtime supporter, and I appreciate that. On down through here. Just grabbing highlighted stuff before we head over to Ed's channel. Bribby says, okay, that was that question again. Sorry it took so long to get to it, Bryn. I didn't intend for our topic to go that long, but that was some information I felt like we could share, and it kind of went over. But hopefully you were still hanging around to get the answer to that. I appreciate you being here and appreciate you asking the questions. I think I might just be down to the end. Looks like we've actually caught up. We have. There's Whipsworld with $2 super sticker. The awesome little fox. I know it's not a fox, but I'm still going to call it a fox. Thank you for that, Whipsworld. Appreciate you. Another longtime supporter of the channel. Always super, super awesome. Super, super grateful. Never expected, but always appreciated. It's because of, the members and the supporters and people like you that give us, I guess, the push, if you will. It helps us do things like Aquashella. At this point, I'm not going to 100% lock it in, but it looks like we are going to be going to Chattanooga, or not Chattanooga. Ed's already going to Chattanooga, right? To Chicago. Looks like we will be going to Chicago. We're still working out details and all of that and logistics. But it's because of awesome people like you all with your support. So we thank you very, very much for that. It does make a difference. All right. If you have any final questions or comments you'd like for us to address before we get out of here, we've got about 5 minutes left. Just put @FisherandFever. I'll grab that from the chat and we'll be happy to address that. Not required that it be in super chat form. So please, if you're new here, don't think that. While we're letting people get any last minute things in, Ed, do you want to tell them what we're going to be talking about on your stream coming up live next?
Well, Liquid Zoo, Matt F. gifted me a Flugel Flux, the mega one.
Oh man,
I know, it's crazy. And I'm going to be opening it up. I've got it right here. We're going to open it up. We're going to look at what's inside, if it needs to be hot rodded, or if we can just go with what's there. We'll get your guys' opinion. I was going to bring up some rocks, but I just didn't want to carry them from my side of the house to my mom and dad's side of the house.
Right? Absolutely.
I didn't want to take it apart in the fish room because I have fish like parts to tanks and things all over the place. So I wanted to take it apart here, so if something rolls out, I'll know what it belongs to right away. Does that make sense? So, I got the cable company to come out and fix my cable last week, but my router that you helped me with, James, the signal isn't very good anymore.
Huh.
So I don't know what quite happened there. So something for us to think about.
Absolutely.
So that's what we're going to do. We're going to check out this big ass tank, pull it out, and see what's in it.
All right. That sounds like it's going to be fun. And that's awesome. Matt F is a really awesome guy. He's been a huge supporter on this channel as well. A huge supporter to both of us. And one of the people in mentioning, that kind of giving us that push, if you will, to go to Aquashella. So that's super, super cool. I think that's going to be fun. For anybody that's not familiar with the term, when Ed mentions hot rodding, maybe you're new around here, if you will. We're going to be looking at if there are any modifications that we can do specifically to filtration, typically, versus any cartridges that may come with it, things of that nature. Anything we can do to optimize a unit and make it run more efficiently and not have a lot of things that we're going to have to replace on a constant basis. So that's what we're looking at. I think that's going to be fun to do that unboxing on there. So I think that we got a couple minutes left. We'll give it a couple minutes. Paul Cetera is saying, Fish Room Fever, there's going to be a Fall Carolina Aquatic Expo on 10/30/21 in Fort Mill, South Carolina. That is awesome. Very, very awesome.
Okay, let me grab a piece of paper and I'll write that down so I don't forget. Hang on.
That is awesome with the listings. So I will leave it. Actually, no, we'll talk about that next week. We'll leave a cliffhanger because I want to have more time to talk about this other thing I was going to talk about. And it is about 1 minute before we wrap this up.
I'm going to use one of my family scorecards. And you guys can't read that, but it says at the end of this game, I had 36 points. I don't know what game it was, but I beat my brother because he had 34, and I beat my dad because he had 35, and my mom just had 27. Just wanted to share that with you guys. I don't know what game it was, and probably none of them are watching right now for me to really rub it in, but it's still fun. Okay.
Absolutely.
So South Carolina.
Fort Mill, South Carolina, 10/30/21.
Fort Mill. Okay, and it's 10/20/21.
No, I think it was 10/30. Hold on, let me go back. Yeah, 10/30/21.
10/30. So that's. I don't think. I'm trying to think if anything is that weekend. Without
is that not the other Aquashella?
Oh, that would be Halloween.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so Dallas is the Aquashella, but we might be able to make this one.
Yeah, that's
because we'd be back in time, unless my sister actually has her party on the 30th.
Right.
So
yeah, Aquashella weekend, absolutely. And then the final thing I'm going to end on here, MNC Aquatic says, sent me a picture on Messenger, want an opinion. I don't know if you wanted me to share this or not, so I'm not going to share it unless I see you mention that real quick. But it's a 20-gallon tall aquascape, and my opinion is it looks really, really nice. I really like how you worked in all the rock work. really awesome. I'm hoping you're going to do some plants in there. I'm sure you are. The tank, the picture has no water in it yet, but I'm sure you're probably going to do some plants. I think it'll be great to have some plants coming out of some of the rock work.
Oh, who is that?
This MNC Aquatics sent me a photo on Messenger here, and then asked about it in the chat. Wanted an opinion. Beautiful work.
I'm going to make him show it to me after the streams are over.
There you go. Absolutely. I'm just giving just a second there to see. Nope. All right. Yes, plants to come share if you want. So let's see if I can. I'm going to turn it this way so it doesn't have your full name showing on there, just in case you don't want that. And let me turn this so I can actually move my chat so I can see my camera here. See if it's going to focus.
See, I'll make you big.
I like it. I really, really like it.
Oh, wow. That is nice.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really, really nice scape. Really nice scape. So, yeah, my opinion is it looks awesome. You said, yes, you're going to do plants. I'm really curious to see it when you get done with it. So please feel free to send me a picture. I'm looking forward to seeing that when you get done with it. That being said, we've been on here for an hour, and it's time to go hang out with Chattanooga Ed and unbox a Megaflex. A huge thank you, of course, to my buddy Chattanooga Ed for being here. As always, my buddy, pal, and co-host. Always a fun time with you, my friend. To all the members, the moderators, the lurkers, which we clarified that last week, the observers, listeners, super chatters and contributors, of course, all the people on the replay crew. I love you guys. I appreciate you. We're going to go hang out live with Chattanooga Ed if you're watching this live. Until next time, you already know it. Keep your fish healthy. Keep yourselves healthy. Don't be afraid to catch yourself a little fish room fever. Take care, everybody.